spoiler alert, guys, there was a top 15 matchup in the SEC. It feels like this is a nightly occurrence. There is always going to be a matchup of top 15 teams in the SEC. Tennessee wins their second in a row, bounces back from an 11-point deficit in the second half. They put up 57 in the second half on the Missouri Tigers, Jeff Goodman, led by Zakai Ziegler, who had 21 points, and Igor Milicic, who was unbelievable. He had 21-10, 5 assists, 4 blocks, and 2 steals. What do you make of the Vols at this point, Jeff? Where do you stand on what this team is, what their ceiling is, what they can be long-term? Because I feel like every time I watch them play, I completely change my opinion on Tennessee. They're just that kind of a team.
Well, they're a good matchup for Missouri because they have Zakai Ziegler. So you could try to press Zakai Ziegler all you want. He's a one-man press break, and he showed that tonight. After missing the last game, he's been banged up a little bit lately. He looked healthy. That's the number one thing for Tennessee. He needs to be healthy. But I remember after we saw Tennessee down there in Auburn, what was that, 10 days or so ago, I was talking to Rick Barnes in the locker room after the game about Milicic and just saying to him, like, I think he's the X factor for you. And he said, like, we need more out of this guy. We need more out of him offensively. We need him to be more aggressive. Those, to me, you know what you're going to get out of Meshack, right? You know what you're going to get. You're going to get an absolute dog, a killer defensively. But, again, Milicic is that guy that just he's got to bring it and give you something, especially in the offensive end, because you don't want to have to be so reliant on Chaz Lanier to have to go for 20 every single night. And tonight, the beauty was it was Ziegler and Igor. Those were the guys that were out last game when they punished Florida, and they were terrific tonight.
Jarrell?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the biggest thing for Tennessee, I think Jeff hit it on the head, is Ziegler. And when he's right, because he's sort of their engine offensively, and like he spoke to, Lanier is probably the best scorer that they have. But at the end of the day, he's more of a catch-and-shoot guy. He's not a guy that's necessarily going to have a great night or have an efficient night if he has to create his own opportunities to get looks. I think Ziegler does a great job of that, and not just with him. He just has so much shot creation in general because he's so fast with the ball. Virtually impossible to keep out of the paint. And, tonight when he's able to get hot and make threes as well, and kind of force guys to guard him or go over some of those screens out front. He's it gives them a different element to their team. And obviously, like we spoke to as well, Milicic is huge. He's a guy that's more than capable, could do a little bit of everything. Tough, rebounds it well, high IQ guy too, man. So if they can get consistent production from him, and Ziegler is going to be healthy, I think they'll be fine. Obviously, we know they're a tough, defensive, rugged team, but I think one of the big takeaways of this game too is that I think Missouri is pretty for real, man. they look good, even in the game where they had a hard time for the most part stopping Tennessee tonight. I think on most nights, if you think you're going to go into Tennessee and you could hit the 80-point mark, that you're going to have a chance to win on most nights. Tonight just wasn't the case because they shot it so well and they had a hard time getting stops when they needed them. But Perkins and Bates held up really good. Both of those guys shot the ball pretty efficiently. They didn't turn the ball over or not to go. Like, to only turn the ball over 3 times versus Tennessee is an accomplishment.
Crazy.
Don't get me wrong. They had the other guys in their starters lineup, and the rest of the guys outside of the 2 guys I just named didn't have great shooting nights. But at least sometimes getting those shot attempts and not having live ball turnovers going the other way, so Tennessee can get out and get those easy open downhill baskets in transition. Like that's a major part of being able to stay in the game and compete on the road, man. So obviously a hat tip to Dennis, man. I think he's doing a good job, and I think they're going to be a team we kind of got to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, I agree with that because they can throw different defenses at you. They got a bunch of length and athleticism. They got like 3 different guards that can beat you on a given night, right? Like we've seen Tony Perkins do it. We've seen Tamar Bates do it. Obviously, Caleb Grill can get hot and reel off like 4 or 5 threes and a half. I just want to circle back on Milicic because when he committed, Jeff, I remember we talked about it on maybe it might have been in like April on an episode that we did the transfer portal updates about how how it was interesting that Rick Barnes was kind of making a pivot, right? Where he was targeting guys in the transfer portal that you knew could score. Like their thought process is, we're going to guard. We can teach people how to play defense. Let's go get guys that know how to play offense, that are capable of playing offense. Like that is what they do. And Milicic, it's taken him a little while to kind of get to this point where I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's just finding his footing within the offense, but this is a 6'10" dude that makes threes, that feels like when he's driving to the rim, like he just kind of glides. The way that he moves is different than what you normally see out of these 6'10" dudes. He dunks on people. Like it feels like this is the kind of thing that you could get out of him on a more nightly basis. And it's nice to see it, man. It was a really big performance, I think.
Like I said, I mean, I think he's that X factor. If he becomes more consistent and more aggressive and more assertive, they're a different team, because then you've got like a big three of sorts, right? I mean, you got Ziegler, you know what he can do. He's not a big time scorer, but he can put pressure on the defense and get to the rim whenever he wants. And then you got Lanier and Milicic. And to be honest, Parr has been really good this year. He's not an offensive weapon, but he's a lob threat at least.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of is, right? Like you could let him run those ball screens, and you have to know where you are, because if they throw it up by the square, like he is going to finish it. He's going to go up there and get and catch it and dunk it, and it's an easy 2 points. So he definitely is a threat. I told you guys this before we started going live, that I had a take on Rick Barnes in Tennessee, and I'm curious what you guys have to think about this. Jeff, we talked about it a little bit on Saturday with LaTulip, that what Tennessee did in the second half against Florida was just kind of run floppy action over and over and over again. And for people listening at home, it's basically just give one of your guards a choice of going off one side or the other side, basically running off of a pin down to try to be able to create an opportunity where you get a one-on-one look. What they did tonight in the second half was they put Chaz Lanier and Jordan Gainey in a choice action, which is essentially the same kind of thing, but it's like running off of a baseline screen or running off of a screen kind of that comes up the middle, right? And it's simple stuff. They're not running the sets that UConn runs. They're not running sets that Creighton runs. Like, this is not overly complicated things. They got old guys that are smart scorers that understand what to do running off of these screens. And when I watch it, it's really not all that dissimilar from what Coach Cal did from like 2019 to 2023 when he was at Kentucky. But the difference is with Rick Barnes, one, they got a culture defensively, and two, they got 23-year-olds that understand how to score running off of those screens as opposed to 18-year-olds. And that was something that struck me watching them tonight, thinking about what happened against Florida Drill. And he's not reinventing the wheel offensively. It's really simple stuff that they're running, and they put up 85 points on a team that came in as a top 25 defense in America.
Yeah, and I think just sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that it has to be something that's super complex or complicated. In a lot of situations, less is more. And one of the things that stuck out while you was just talking there, Rob, too, is just the little stuff you're talking about, just like floppy action or the choice action where you can come off the baseline or get the pin down up top. The biggest thing about that is, number one, having guys come off with pace, practicing that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that people don't talk about, like flying off of those screens and being able to get your feet turned in quick enough, and you squared up to the basket where you can actually make those type of shots. And the second thing is one of the things I don't think they get enough credit for at times, but sometimes I say even a couple years ago, I remember they had the team and they were talking about they were on the borderline of being a dirty team, man, is that, they hit bodies, they screen people, they're physical. And that makes all the difference in the world. When you hit people on screens a lot of times, and I know that's like cliche coach talk, but it gets you open. You know what I mean? Because guys are usually going to be behind the play. Somebody's going to have to jump out. Then that's when slips and everything else start to open up too. So I don't think it's necessarily that they need to overcomplicate it. They got a good, like you said, an older team, guys that understand angles. They come off. Lanier is able to fly off of those things and get his feet turned in and let it go with the best of them. Ziegler understands timing and those type of things and where the guys need the ball, when they need to deliver that. So as long as they're able to do that and execute consistently, don't get me wrong, some nights the shots aren't going to fall too, but they don't need to complicate things. They're going to lean in on their defense and also try to steal some baskets and transition and play downhill.